好，新州百格的观众朋友们，大家晚上好。那已故敦伊斯迈的长子道菲相隔30年回归政坛，誓言击退贪腐政权，要跟巫统主席阿末扎希决一死战，说阿末扎希不配代表马来人，表示他到哪里对手都是我。那为什么道菲紧追阿末扎希不放呢？面对巫统的老大，他到底做了哪一些准备？这是否和他的父亲敦伊斯迈所期望的马来西亚有关呢？那今天晚上10月24日正值屠妖节，那9时30分，我们一起来和道菲聊聊这份执着背后的故事。那今次的百个 LIVE 会客室呢，会将以这英语来进行的。那对相关的议题有什么样的看法？有什么想问嘉宾的？也欢迎大家留言。好，moving right along, let's get this session started by saying how honored and delighted I am to have you here today, Mr. Tawfik. So before we proceed, sir, would you mind saying hi to our audience?
Good evening, everybody. Very happy to be here with Mr. Chin to speak to you all tonight.
Yeah, so thank you, sir, for coming today. So, in fact, you previously said that you wish to return to politics as your father did. So, and now you are really here. So, what prompted you to make this decision?
Well, basically, I'm very concerned with the way we have chosen our leaders in this country. I think we deserve a lot of better leaders than what we have right now, especially after the exposition of all the crimes that were committed when people are in government. So I thought I should do my part and come into politics to try and help make things better.
Yes, you stated that you are offering yourself in this coming general election as Calon Rakyat. So what does it mean?
It means that I don't belong to any particular political party. I'm standing as an independent because I think the political parties that we have right now have not been able to fulfill the promises that they've made to the people in this country. And I would like the people in this country to look at the individual that is standing rather than the parties that they represent.
Okay. In fact, I heard rumors saying that you will be contesting under PH banner. So can you verify this news?
Yes, I offered myself to the Pakatan Harapan coalition because I think the Pakatan Harapan have got the machinery and the resources that are that would be useful to me in my fight against the incumbent in Bagan Datuk.
Yes, I have some questions regarding Bagan Datuk and also the incumbent. But before that, so in case you contest under PH's banner, so is Gerak Independence still valid, and why do you choose PH?
Well, it's like taking a car from one destination to the other. You can ride in a BMW or a Proton or a Rolls Royce, or you can ride on a bicycle. It depends on how you want to get to your destination. So Pakatan Harapan happens to be the vehicle that is available for me, I hope, and that depends on whether or not the people who own the vehicle allow me to be a passenger.
So, have you got their answer yet? I mean, their response.
Well, so far I have been given some encouragement by the former DAP leader, Mr. Lim Kit Siang, in the press, and there have been people on the ground who are pro-.
好，那相信是一些技术上的问题，不过没关系，我们再稍后。好，sorry, yes, yeah. So maybe there were some technical issues, but we can't hear you yet. Maybe there's some setting.
Sorry, are we back online again?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. So, where are we just now? Okay, so, have you got any response from the leaders of Pakatan Harapan yet?
Yes, so far I've been given a response by Mr. Lim Kit Siang in the newspapers today that he was hoping that Pakatan Harapan will accept my offer to stand under their banner.
Okay, so in case this regarding Pakatan Harapan, so in case PH were to win the election and become the state government, and also you outdid Datuk Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid, so where do things go from here?
Well, I think if I became a member of parliament, I will be able to voice out some of my concerns that have affected the way the country has been run. I don't have any other platform at the moment other than to stop kleptocrats from taking power in this country, because the biggest problem we have is if the incumbent wins and he happens to be the president of the biggest Malay party in this country, then he will be considered to be a spokesman of the Malays. And I don't think as a Malay, I'm happy to see someone like him represent me.
Yeah, regarding the issue, this issue, I have a lot more questions later. But before that, so what would happen if instead PH did not win the election?
Well, I think if PH didn't win the elections, then you can say that the people have spoken and they have already decided what kind of leadership and government they want. Then we have to wait and see whether or not there is another opportunity in the future to put forward our ideas on what makes a better country.
And I was wondering whether you ever thought about becoming a member of any party of Pakatan Harapan.
Well,
yes.
Well, in Pakatan Harapan, I have not considered any of the parties. I think the problem with party politics is that you have to be disciplined to the wishes of the party, and you might not agree with everything that the party decides on. So as an individual, you have the flexibility to voice what you think is right without having to be disciplined by the party.
Okay, in fact, there are some more queries about PH, in fact, but let's move on. Tonight, we should prioritize your political mission and vision. So you haven't been active in politics for quite some time, and you have finally returned. So why should you run in Bagan Datuk?
Well, because I think the incumbent there is the man who needs to be stopped from rising further in Malaysian politics, because he is facing so many charges in court, and he has not discharged himself yet from those problems. and yet he still wants to run and represent the people in that constituency. So I'm giving them an alternative, whether they want to have as a member of parliament someone who's facing all these charges or someone who is clean.
Well, in fact, I have been in Bagan Datuk for several times. I would say it is a very decent place with a nice beach, nice seafood. So how would you describe Bagan Datuk and how can it be better?
Well, Bagan Datuk is not that far away from KL. And I think I was looking at some of the figures, the statistics, and it seems to have a lot of internet available, and it has a very high usage of mobile phones. And it's about 60%, I think it's about 56% Malay, and about 27% Chinese, and about 17% Indian. So it's quite an interesting seat from the point of view of population mix and ethnic mix.
Okay, I think I have noticed where Young's questions. Where Young's questions is somehow similar with the question I am about to ask. So yes, you were Sungai Benut MP. Well, Sungai Benut is now split into Pontian and Simpang Renggam, and there's some news. Dr. Masli Malik may contest in Simpang Renggam as well. There are some other rumors saying that Hasni, the ex-Johor MB, may be his opponent. But my query is, why not you go to Pontian to fight against Datuk Sri Ahmad Maslan?
Well,
Since
I
you
think.
are, yes.
Sorry.
Since you are a Johorian as well.
Yes, I am a Johorian, and but I am a Malaysian citizen, and I'm allowed under the constitution to offer myself in any seat in any parliament in Malaysia. And I think the problem has to be faced in areas where the problem lies. So at the moment, the problem is in Bagan Datuk, not in Simpang Renggam or in Pontian.
So the place is not your concern, but the person, I mean the opponent, is your main concern, right?
Yeah, I have to be focused on my target, and I have nothing personal in this campaign against the people that you mentioned just now, like Masli or Maslan. But they are people who are important in their own right, but no one is as important as the president of UMNO.
Well, in fact, in case you are contesting in Bagan Datuk, so there is also news indicating that Datuk Sri Shamsul Iskandar is eyeing Bagan Datuk as well. So have you talked to him yet?
Well, no, I've only read in the papers that he has offered himself as a candidate there.
So, in case he also, I mean, how will you negotiate with him? I mean, in case he really wants to contest in Bagan Datuk.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of negotiation. I think it's a matter of Pakatan Harapan deciding for themselves who they want to stand in Bagan Datuk.
So, you said you will go. I mean, you will go wherever he goes. So why are you, so chasing him, keep eyeing on him?
Well, I cannot let him get away with being where he is in the position that he's in, with all the charges that he's been faced, and I'm offering myself to fight him because nobody else seems to have taken up the challenge.
Okay, and Zahid is local. I mean, Bagan Datuk. He's the people of Bagan Datuk, and he has been the incumbent there since 1995. And I believe he is extremely powerful. So, what are your plans? And also, I noticed that Anson Ng have a question and he has a similar question. So he said, people hardly see you in the limelight. and are not familiar with you, most likely. So do you think that it puts you on the back foot? If yes, what's your remedy?
Well, definitely, I'm not very high profile compared to the other people who are standing in this general election, but I do have a message which I think needs to be carried to the people of Bagan Datuk and to the people of this country, which is that it is the people versus corruption, rakyat lawan rasuah.
Well, and also, if I'm not mistaken, you have been labeled as liberal figure after some news, including you talk about your late father owned a boxer and Alsatian, and also your comments about Jakim. So, is it a hindrance for you to earn the support among the Malays, especially the conservative population?
Well, I think the Malays are not ignorant of the problems that they face. As I mentioned, the population of Bagan Datuk do have a very high internet usage, as well as a very high proportion of them own mobile phones. So whatever is being broadcast or whatever is being said is something which they are pretty much aware of. And being a location that is halfway between Ipoh and KL, I think there's a lot more people from Bagan Datuk who are working in urban areas like KL and Ipoh, and I think they are the ones that are not go back and vote issue which I'm presenting, which I hope they will support me for.
And also we noticed that there is Unti 18 now. So how would you do? What is the strategy to gain the youngsters' support? It may be sound good, but so you are a senior citizen, and as well as Zahid is also a senior citizen. So how would you, what is the strategy to gain the youngsters' support?
Well, I think I'm a father of five children, 4 boys and a girl, and they're all about the age of the average worker voter in this country. And I listen to some of their concerns, and I have an idea of what people want at that age group. And I think if you look at the economic situation that they're all facing, there is so much that we can do to make it better life for them. And I think this is where management of the country is important. And it doesn't matter what age you're at, whether you're a senior citizen like me or a young person like Syed Sadiq, but we all are facing the same problems, and we all must approach the problems in the same way.
So may I ask, so what are the advice that your children or maybe the youngsters share with you?
Well, I always tell them that the problem right now is that as they start work, their purchasing power is not as great as it should be, because the government has imposed taxes on items which I consider to be essential, that needs to be reduced. And I think the cost of housing is also something which is very exorbitant, and I don't think my children or anyone else's children can afford to buy a house. And I think this is the kind of issue that we as politicians have not been facing, have not been tackling properly. And we need to look very carefully at what has gone wrong in our economic policy that makes the situation the way it is.
Yes, I think that's the problem. That's the issue I'm facing right now. Yeah, so obviously, and the politicians are playing with a lot of issues. So what are the issues that you think need our attention the most?
Well, for example, I mean, if I can just elaborate a bit more, why are we paying 200 or 300% more in the price of a car, for example? You know that transport is a very essential commodity, and public transport has not gone to the stage where people can use it as an alternative. So the price of cars can go down very much more than it has been, because unfortunately we've been protecting a car industry that has not been good for the country. And I think this is something which the previous government has been imposing on the people. And I think things like infrastructure development, I think in some of the kampongs and some of the towns, you're still facing floods. I mean, why are you faced with these problems 65 years after independence? And then in East Malaysia, why are children crossing rivers on bridges which are prone to collapse and putting their lives in danger? I mean, these are all issues that face us every day, and we need good leadership in this country to solve these kind of problems, which I think are not difficult given the fact that there are the resources available.
Yes, there are a lot more issues, including economical and also infrastructure. But you set the anti-bribery as your main theme for this general election, right? So why is it the main focus, but not the economic or maybe the welfare of the people?
Well, we need to focus on exactly where the problems lie when it comes to leadership. And the basic problem is integrity and accountability. And once you tackle that problem, then you can expect better management.
Okay, so do you think how can we, or maybe the politicians, how can the government, how can the officials to solve the problem?
Well, I think first of all, the problem with the general election is that when you have a candidate, who chooses the candidate? How are the candidates chosen? And let's say you're a loyal member of the DAP or a loyal member of UMNO or whatever party is standing in your constituency. What choice are you given in the quality of the candidate that is being presented to you? I mean, that is a fundamental question in democracy. And unfortunately, if you are very loyal to, let's say, a party like UMNO, but the candidate happens to be someone who bribes his way to being a candidate, what kind of a leader will he be after he wins?
Okay, speaking of which, I just recall that you were elected. I mean, you were elected in 1986, right, as Songai Belut MP?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and you just quit UMNO the next year.
I quit UMNO in the year 2006, I think, when Najib became prime minister and he was looking for a deputy president, and Mahyudin became the deputy president. That's when I disagreed with the selection of Mahyudin as deputy president, because at that time Najib was facing problems with Mahathir, and I thought Najib could have done a better job choosing someone who was stronger to fight Mahathir. So my views were not taken into account. So I decided that perhaps the party was better off without me.
Okay, so what's the difference between the UMNO then and now? So when you are contesting, and also compared to the current situation?
Well, first of all, the UMNO that I was killed off by Mahathir in 1987. And what they call UMNO right now is actually a Frankenstein party created by Mahathir using the name of UMNO. It is not the UMNO that we all know and respected that was formed by Dato' On in 1946.
So that's really an interesting analogy. In fact, Pejuang and Tun Dr. Mahathir is also making the bribery the main threat of the country. So he was also like described UMNO as totally corrupt. So have you ever considered contesting under GTA's banner or even joining Pejuang?
Well, the trouble is I don't agree with the way Dr. Mahathir has divided the Malays, because although he talks about Malay unity, he has single-handedly divided the Malays into many groups, because in the case of UMNO, for example, if UMNO doesn't agree with what he wanted to do, he formed Perkasa under Ibrahim Ali to do what he wants the Malays to do. And he created this parallel organization where the members of Perkasa are the same as the members of UMNO. So he's done this again with Pejuang. He wasn't happy with Bersatu. He wasn't happy with UMNO, so he formed Bersatu. And then not happy with Bersatu, he formed Pejuang. And yet he talks about Malay unity. I mean, how do you do this when you are creating parallel organizations all over the place?
So, what is Malay unity in your, in your vision, or in the ideal version of Malay unity? Sorry, Malay unity.
Well, let me tell you that there is no such thing as Malay unity, because the Malays in Perak and the Malays in Johor and the Malays in Kelantan are we Malays
那现在是有一些技术上的问题，那我们可能要再等等，就是可能就是上回来了还没有，就是可能需要再给多一些的时间，让道飞呢再重新上线的。那无论如何，我们现在看到道飞回来了 ，Welcome back. Sorry, sir. Okay, so we were just discussing about so the so-called ideal version of Malay unity. So you mentioned that there's no such thing called Malay unity.
No, there isn't, because Malays have always been people who absorb other cultures and other influences in the history. Right from the early days of our history, we've been influenced by Indian culture, we've been influenced by Chinese culture, we've been influenced by the Portuguese, and we've absorbed everything, including Arab culture when Islam came. But the idea of a Malay is something that needs to be preserved, because in this world there are Filipino Malays who are Christian. There are Balinese Malays who are Hindu. There are Malaysian Malays who are Muslim. So many different types of Malays that you cannot classify a Malay as one particular type.
So, do you have any candidate in mind who can represent the Malay population?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any candidate in mind that are capable to represent the Malay population?
Well, when the governments were formed in the last few years since the last general elections, people in the coalition parties are looking at the Malay as a leader of the government. But what kind of Malay do you have available? You have a Mahathir type of Malay, you have Anwar Ibrahim type of Malay, you have Mat Sabu type of Malay, you have Mayudin. But then what about people like me and Siti Kasim? I mean, we are a different kind of Malay. And if we win in the general elections under the constitution, as members of parliament, we're also qualified to be prime minister. So given the fact that if they were looking around at 222 people in parliament to choose from to form a government, they can choose from any of us.
So what are the qualities a PM should have, do you think?
Well, I think going into this current century, it has to be someone that can play down the fears of the Malays when it comes to race and religion. I think we need to keep in mind that the Constitution is something which is the supreme law of the country, and everything in the Constitution has been designed to preserve people's rights as well as keeping the balance of the country in check. And also, I think we need to look at things like the role of the rulers, the role of the judges, and the role of parliament.
So I remember when we had a conversation last year, you mentioned Dr. Mahathir is the worst teacher for breeding leaders that you can think of because all the people who fought against him now were his students in Umno, the University of Umno. So and he said he is willing to be the PM for a third time if that is a request. So do you have anything in mind?
Well, I hope God will save us from that fate, because I don't think we deserve to be led by someone that's going to be a century old. I think there are younger, more intelligent people available that we can choose from.
And also, you said that, I remember you once said that a lot of leaders don't really comprehend what Malaysia first policy means, because the definition of Malaysian is only those staying in Peninsula. So, and now we can see Datuk Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid and Datuk Sri Anwar had declared that they will definitely appoint a deputy prime minister from the east. So for what reason now? Why? 好，那可能是这个网络不太稳定，不过没有关系。那我们其实有看到好多朋友的留言，那待会呢，如果是有一些问题的话，那我也会帮忙，就是协助大家，就是转达给他的。好，那我们给就是道飞一些时间再调整一下。我们有看到的是Patrick 听力Patrick 说他需要加入一党或一派才会赢吧，或者赢了再加入也行吧，不过要把一个在位的这个党主席拉下是有一点难度的。好，那我们看到道飞回来了 ，Welcome back. So, okay, so yeah, in fact, I have a long question. So, because I remember you once said that a lot of leaders don't really comprehend what Malaysia first policy means, because the definition of the so-called Malaysian is only those staying in the peninsula. So, and now we can see Ahmad Zahid and also Anwar have declared that they will definitely appoint a deputy prime minister from the east. So, for what reason now? Why all of a sudden they do care about those in the east?
Well, I think because they know that after the general elections, there will not be a coalition that has the majority in the peninsula to be able to rule the country the way National had ruled it before GE14. So they need to reach out to East Malaysia to make sure that they have enough numbers to form a government.
And also, as the eldest son of the former deputy prime minister, do you think we need 2 or 3 DPM?
Well, our democracy evolves over time, and we need to change with the times. So Obviously, looking at the way East Malaysia has figured in a very important way in the last few years, the last few general elections, I think it's probably time that they were given a bigger say in the way the country is being run.
Okay, so actually we noticed that there's a lot of comments from the audience from the floor. So one of them is Wing Long Wong. Wing Long said maybe you can consider joining the AP. I think it suits you. Please consider. So do you have anything? Do you have any comments, or have you ever considered joining the AP?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends from the DAP, and I have a high regard for the way they've been conducting themselves in Parliament. But I would rather be an independent and talk on my own volition, because party politics is something which can be very constrained, whether it's DAP or UMNO or PAS or whatever. There are certain disciplines which, as an individual, I cannot abide by. So rather than cause friction within those parties, I'd rather stay out and lead from outside.
And also a comment from Patrick. Patrick said, so you should join a party in order to win, or maybe after winning the seat, only you join the party. So because it's really difficult for you, for you to take down the president of UMNO. So do you have any comment?
Well, there's no such thing as a Superman in politics. Every man has his weakness, and you have to exploit the weakness if you think that you can win. I need to look at the numbers in Bagan Datuk and play the numbers according to what is presented to me.
Speaking of which, it seems like Pakatan Harapan plans to retake Perak by bringing in the big guns. And now we can see Anwar will contest in Tambun, and even the Perak, the AP chairman now coming said they intend to build the corridor of hope, or so-called Pakatan Harapan corridor. So in your opinion, why is PH so eager to take over Perak?
Well, Perak is one of the biggest states in the country, and I think given the fact that Perak has a sizable resource as far as marine as well as natural resources, it's a state that people would like to take over and run. It's probably next to Selangor, maybe the most populous state as far as the public is concerned, because of the fact that there's so much going on in Perak.
And also, while the Pakatan Harapan has faced a lot of criticism for its previous manifesto, including the TOR, PTPTN, and etc. So Dun M has once said manifesto is not a Bible, it is a guidance. Sometimes we can do things, but sometimes we find that we cannot, so we have to be practical minded. So I have a few questions here. So to begin, are there any significant flaws in their previous manifesto, and what are they? Second, how can PH develop a manifesto for the president?
Well, I'm not a leader of PH, so I cannot speak on behalf of PH. Parties, when they come into a general election, you're basically doing this as a PR exercise. So whatever it is that the Pakatan component parties decide on a platform, we have to wait and see, because they have not revealed what they are manifesto or what their platform is.
Okay, maybe after they have come out this manifesto only, have something to comment. But I think there is nothing because they have not yet published their manifesto yet. So maybe we can discuss about a little bit about Tun Dr. Ismail. So Tun Dr. Ismail valued the rule of law and did not tolerate corruption. So is there any memorable experience you can share with us about this?
Well, I think his other qualities was the fact that he sacrificed his personal comfort for the good of the country, because Tun Razak was faced with a very critical illness, and my father had a heart problem already. So when Razak told him about his problem, my father felt that there was much that he could do to try to carry on if anything happened to Tun Razak, and this was in spite of the fact that he had a young family to look after, meaning me and my siblings. And I think if it wasn't for the politics, we might have enjoyed him much longer than when he died at the age of 56. So the sacrifice that he made for the country is something which I can't forget.
So I have heard something. I mean, someone said that his views on NEP and the word Bumiputra seem to be very different from the general views. Can you elaborate more on this?
Well, when the NEP was formed, it was to redress the economic imbalance in this country. And up till 1969, people would identify race with occupation. So if you were an estate worker, you were Indian. If you were a businessman, you were Chinese. If you were a driver or a servant, you're a Malay. And the NEP was designed to try to break down the stereotype that was present at that time. And it was meant as a policy of fairness. The word Bumiputra is something that is not in the constitution, and it was a creation of some politicians, and it's a very unfortunate term to use, because if you have Bumiputras, then you have non-Bumiputras, and immediately you become negative. So I don't like using the word Bumiputra. I think we should identify people as Malay, Chinese, or Indian, or Dayak, or Kadazan, or Iban, but don't use the word Bumiputra, because then you have non-Bumiputras, and it's not fair.
And some criticize that NEP is one of the factor that why Malaysians are Malaysians today. I mean, they are all differentiated by their race. So do you agree with that?
Well, as I said, the whole idea of the NEP was to try to break down the identification of race with occupation, and I think to some extent it has succeeded in a way that you don't see people being classified by professions as Malay, Indian, or Chinese. So you have Malay doctors, you have Chinese doctors, you have Indian doctors, you have Malay engineers, you have Chinese engineers, you have Indian engineers. Where in the past this was something which was quite rare. So the problem is that the way the NEP was conducted led to the unfairness and to the corruption and to the problems of society that you see right now. It is basically a question of management. The policy in itself probably had its problems, but I think you have to look at the overall socio-economic context of this country and try to solve the problems in as best a way as you can. So I think we need to go from race-based policies to needs-based policies where you give to the people that need it the most.
Okay, that means we should switch the strategy now. Okay, we should maybe come up with a new policy that fits the needs of every need.
Well, I think a lot of government and a lot of management is common sense. So if you see something is wrong, you try to sort it in the best way possible without damaging anything else.
So in case you are a minister today, so how would you do to make this happen?
Well, I think the problem is that that we are over-governed. There are too many ministers and too many civil servants doing very simple things. We need to streamline government. We don't need to be governed so much that it costs us a lot of money in terms of expenditure. I think the prime minister that is elected, the new prime minister, should look very closely at the cost of government.
So the cost of government is one of the highlighted issue, for this election.
Well, I think the cost of government is what's causing a lot of the problems economically in this country.
Okay, I think there is another question from Anson Ng. Is if you were given a portfolio in any ministry, which ministry would you choose and why?
I think the ministry that requires the most attention is probably education, because we need to mold the minds of our young people to think forward to a better future without being inhibited by race or religion.
Okay, so due to the time constraints, so actually I have a few more questions, but due to the time constraint, I think this is the final questions that we can ask today. So how far do you think we are how far do you think we are from reaching national unity, and what are the obstacles to achieve this national unity?
Well, I think we are quite a long way away from national integration. I think the technology is available for us to be able to cross the South China Sea in a manner that is cheaper and more efficient than it is right now. I think we need to look at the resources that we have. We need to be very conscious of the fact that food security is a very important component in our national security, because food security also helps us to reduce the cost of imports, and that helps us in our day-to-day living expenses. And I think when it comes to national unity, we have to make Peninsular Malaya very much aware of the problems of Sabah and Sarawak and make them feel that they are part of a bigger country.
Okay, yeah, I think there are a lot of comments about. Okay, the first one is Wing Long Wong. He said, he totally agreed that education department, I think he is you're referring to the statement you have just stated just now. And Lam will say, UMNO corruption is getting worsen. Please do something. Malaysia is in danger's edge. Okay. And yeah, I think that's all for today. Yeah, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's session. So our sincere appreciation goes out to Mr. Tawfik for taking the time out of his hectic schedule to be us tonight. So wishing you well. Wishing you
Thank you very
well.
much.
Yeah, and looking forward to seeing you again in the future.
Yes, we'll see each other again soon.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
night.
very much, sir. Good
Thank you.
night and happy Deepavali.
Bye.
Bye. 好，那今晚的百个 live 会客室呢就到这里结束了。祝大家屠妖节快乐，假期快乐。那我们下回再见了，晚安，拜拜。